Today, I'm going to explain the sci-fi movie Kiss Through the Wall, released in the year 2011. The movie title may be lame, but the movie is good. The main character is a magician's assistant named Kesha. He performs an illusion called Through the Wall with his uncle. He lives in a rented apartment with his best friend. His landlord urges him to pay rent from time to time. Sometimes he's scolded by his uncle for not performing well. His life is quite miserable. Just as he thought his life wasn't going to get any better, one day after the show, he met a beautiful reporter named Alyssa who was interviewing his uncle. Kesha was completely stunned by her beauty, but because he was too clumsy, he was kicked out of the trailer by his uncle. Alyssa tried to approach Kesha to learn more about the illusion through walls so she could write an article about it. One day, when the two were performing, Alyssa and her boyfriend came to watch the show together. Kesha was disappointed, as if he had fallen from heaven to hell. He was distracted, and so he underperformed. During the show, his uncle invited Alyssa to perform cutting magic, and her boyfriend requested to let him do it. Kesha's eyes were full of jealousy, and he almost cut her boyfriend. Later on, he was fired by his uncle for causing chaos in the show. Kesha doesn't care if Alyssa has a boyfriend. He tried his best to get her. He thinks if he were rich and good-looking, he would have a chance, but unfortunately, he is not. Afterwards, he secretly followed the two and found out their whereabouts. But it was a luxury apartment with strict security and access codes. How could he get in? Depressed, Kesha begins smoking outside the door. A homeless man happened to light him a cigarette and asked him if he could lend him $20, and if he could, he'd grant him any wish. Kesha was very sad at this time. He didn't care what the homeless man said, thinking he was joking. He gave the homeless man $20. But after getting the money, the homeless man disappeared, which baffled Kesha. He got up and magically walked through the door. The scene then shifts to the next morning, when he's woken up by his uncle's call. Although he was fired by his uncle, there was no one to help him, and he couldn't handle a lot of things on his own. Kesha woke up confused and foggy, and didn't notice a large amount of cash on the floor, nor did he realize that he was walking through the door. At this time, the news reported that a bank had been robbed, and there was no sign of a break-in. Then he remembered what happened last night. He figured out that he walked through the door last night, and at first, he thought he must have been dreaming. He even tried hitting himself with a brick, only to find out that he could walk through the wall with a touch of his hand or body. He accidentally came into the room of a child who appeared to be sick on the bed. The boy said he was going to be an astronaut. He was curious about how Kesha came in, but the goal of Kesha was to ask for the whereabouts of Alyssa. He finally discovered that she was upstairs, so he planned to go upstairs with his superpowers, and happened to meet 3 people who were composing music. Then, on another level, he met 3 people who were trying to communicate with spirits through psychic rituals. Kesha came in through the wall and asked which floor he was on. Then he went through the wall, terrifying the 3 of them. Finally, he came to the floor where Alyssa was. At this time, Alyssa was undressing and was about to make out with her boyfriend. Kesha disturbed them by making noises from outside the room. He turned into a wall painting to scare her boyfriend. Apart from this, he went to the bank the day before and took out a large amount of money. Otherwise, how would there be money for the landlord today? His life changed after possessing a superpower. He got himself an Audi, but he was stopped by a policeman on the road. He hid under the car and pranked the officer. It seems that after ordinary people have superpowers, they really do whatever they want. Of course, he also pranked his uncle and fired him. After all, his uncle was not very good to him. Unfortunately, the bank robbery came to light. But how was it exposed? Because he left a note in the bank. He wrote on the note that he took the money and his home address was made public. The person in charge came to him. Normally, there's no way to escape, but with his superpowers, escape was easy. At this time, the landlord came. His best friend said the house is in disrepair. He smelled gas, but the landlord insisted the house would last a few more years without any problems. When she turned on the gas stove, there was an explosion. If it weren't for the superpower of Kesha, they would probably have died in the explosion. After the place burned down, they moved to a larger house. His best friend brought home a lot of homeless people.